2012. That was the last year in which McLaren won a Grand Prix. This win came by courtesy of Jenson Button at the Brazilian Grand Prix, which means that it has been 2,978 days since one of their drivers stood on the top step of the podium. McLaren fans have endured a lot of pain since their decline in 2013, but more recently, we have seen them climb back up the pecking order to become a force to be reckoned with in the midfield. To put their rapid resurgence into context for you, they averaged just 1.5 points per race. This became 2.95 points per race in 2018 and then 6.9 in 2019.
Nice.
On their way to finishing third in the Constructors' Championship last season, they averaged a very respectable 11.9 points per race, making for a 693% increase over the last 4 years. Their best result in 2019 came in the form of a P3 for Carlos Sainz in Brazil, and their best result in 2020 also came via the Spaniard in Monza, where he well could have won the race without the red flag. But ultimately, Pierre Gasly clinched a stunning victory for AlphaTauri at their home race, with Sainz coming home behind the Frenchman again. So let's see, a third place in 2019, a second place in 2020, does that mean a win in 2021? Well, that's what we're going to be covering in this video. Just before we dive into it though, I've noticed about 93% of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I wouldn't want any of you to miss out on the great content coming out in the future. So if this is your first time here or you're a returning viewer, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon so you can be notified on any new uploads. We're going to be doing this 1 to 2 times a week, and I can't wait for you all to see what's in store. But with that, let's get into it. Now, before we get into answering this question directly, I want to break down why McLaren have been especially successful in recent times and why they will return to fighting for wins and championships in the not too distant future. So we'll start by discussing the events that took place at the Yas Marina, or should I say lack of events. As many of you know, McLaren secured their best result in the Constructors' Championship since 2012, after Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz came home in 5th and 6th respectively in the season's finale. Don't worry, we'll get into the impact the drivers had on the team's 2020 success later on in the video. But that Sunday also marked a very significant moment in the team's bid to rise back to the top. You see, McLaren suffered a huge financial blow after a combination of Ron Dennis's departure, their split with Honda engines, and generally a lot of subpar performances for a team that has won a total of 20 drivers and constructors championships. This financial difficulty triggered McLaren to get a $150 million loan, sell its Woking headquarters to then lease back long term, and sell a minority stake in the company. The latter transpired hours before the final race of the season, when a consortium of US investors bought a large minority stake in the company in return for a £185 million investment. This not only gives them financial security and independence going forward, it will also allow them to upgrade their facilities such as the wind tunnel and simulators to keep up to schedule with what Andreas Seidel calls the master plan. So I guess now would be a good time to move on to a huge strength of theirs compared to other teams, which is their leadership. The appointment of Zak Brown as CEO in 2017 was one of the best signings McLaren has ever made. The American businessman was faced with the mighty challenge of lifting Britain's most successful Formula One team out of the ditch and back into the spotlight. A sequence of very bold yet strategic decisions carried out by Brown in the last few years have now put McLaren in a position to bridge the gap between themselves and Mercedes in 2022. It all started out with the decision to end McLaren's partnership with Honda and switch to Renault engines. He allowed Alonso to part ways with the team at the end of 2018, but didn't let him completely leave the McLaren family, by giving him the opportunity to participate in different categories, such as the Indy 500. This ensured that the McLaren brand still got maximum exposure from the two-time world champion. Then came the restructure, with Brown bringing in Gilles Deferran as sporting director, Andrea Seidel as team principal, and James Key as technical director, who formerly filled that role at Toro Rosso, where he spent time working with a certain Aussie named Daniel Ricciardo. Now you understand why this was such an intelligent move. Seidel's impact was evident from the very onset, as it was he who recommended the team to switch to Mercedes engines for this season, as well as creating a similar no-blame culture within the garage to the reigning world champions. His pragmatic approach to everything has shown through his responses to the media, like when he said it's not realistic for them to target wins in 2021. To some, this may sound pessimistic, but in my honest opinion, it's better to underpromise and overdeliver other than the other way around. This not only motivates the engineers to stray away from becoming complacent, but it also comes as a nice surprise when McLaren do get an opportunity to snatch a shock win in 2021. Because even though Mercedes and Red Bull will be the only teams that can realistically win races, if you hadn't already somehow realized that, there are always one or two races every year that throw up something unexpected. Monza and Sakir from last year are two prime examples of this. Finally, we move on to the drivers. In 2019, McLaren hit the reset button with their driver lineup, and I think it's safe to say that doing so has paid off very, very well for them. Carlos's performance at McLaren over these past 2 years has massively helped the team rise back up the order in such a short period of time. The bromance between himself and Lando Norris has not only created a more joyful and upbeat vibe within the garage, it has also allowed there to be a lot of openness and trust between them. As a result, the drivers felt comfortable sharing their box of secrets with one another, which ultimately enabled them to elevate each other's performance weekend in and weekend out. It was never always fun and games though. Both drivers were fiercely competitive and hated the concept of being beaten. But the difference between Carlos and Lando compared to, say, Hamilton and Rosberg is that the rivalry never once became toxic. Whenever one would do well, the other would celebrate their success and vice versa. But that also motivated them to identify the areas in which they lacked compared to the other. Their strong collaboration reflects in the stats as well. During 2020, both drivers made Q3 appearances in 12 out of the 17 qualifying sessions in the year, compared to Racing Point's 10 and Renault's 9. The difference between the average finishing position of both McLaren drivers was 1.03, compared to Racing Point's 1.39 and Renault's 1.56. McLaren didn't have the third fastest car on the grid, but their efficiency and consistency helped them secure third place in the Constructors. It will be a similar story this year as well, with the Honey Badger joining forces with the working squad to drive alongside Lando Norris. Many fans are super excited for this dream meme team when the season restarts, and they rightly should be. Daniel's presence within the garage will immediately have a positive impact on the mechanics and help McLaren build on the momentum they've already gained. He and Lando will also make for one of the strongest driver pairings on the grid. Lando has proven to be extremely quick in qualifying, but is still making strides to improve his racecraft. He will undoubtedly take another step in the right direction and keep the Aussie on his toes. Integrating Daniel into the team will be a challenge given the limited amount of testing the teams can do, but the team already have a plan laid out for him to get him well up to speed, so come the first race in Bahrain, he will be able to maximize his performance. And as we know, when Daniel is on it, he is deadly. Off track, the duo that I like to call Dando or Laniel is an absolute dream for McLaren on the marketing side, and us fans are going to be in for a treat. So now for the final verdict. Will McLaren go back to winning ways in 2021? On pure pace? No. There are simply too many factors limiting them from significantly closing the gap down to the two leading teams. But there will still be that odd one-off race where the win could be anyone's game, other than the two Mercedes and Red Bulls. And this will be their chance to capitalize. Ricciardo's ability to deliver when it matters most will unquestionably increase their chances of doing so. And if it all comes together on that day for them, McLaren will win a race in 2021. Let's hope we can look back on this video in the future and say, well, that aged well. But anyway, those are my thoughts on the topic. With the team's current trajectory, where do you think they will be in 2021 and even going forward into the new regulations in 2022? Be sure to leave all your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're new to enjoy my latest videos in the future. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.